Hello. I'm just going to get Instagram live going as well. Okay, so we're good. I'm going to look up and down a little bit, but that's okay. If you can, I guess I'm going to wait a little minute to see if anybody's going to join. Make sure I got my drink together because your girl gets parched. Okay, so today we're going to talk about grief and depression, and I wanted to provide some self-help tips to kind of help us kind of navigate through grief. Now, if you all have listened to like my podcast or listened to any other conversations that I've had surrounding anything with my secret purpose and self-care, a lot of it stems from grief. A lot of it stems from, and I can't get this out of my hair. Okay, let me stay focused, okay? Because when you got curly hair, just don't lag. But other than that, if you all have watched or listened to anything before, you've heard me talk about grief. The topic of grief to me is very near and dear to my heart. It's a very difficult topic, but it's something that everybody experiences. It's a normal life crisis. And so today I just wanted to provide some help and support for us that are experiencing it so that we can kind of help ourselves regulate and get through it. So if you're first coming on, my name is Christian Shields. I am a social worker, a personal coach, and I am becoming a licensed clinical social worker, which is also known to be a therapist. In my personal coaching, I help people discover their purpose and empower them to succeed. Now, when it comes to grief and depression, I've noticed that grief and depression have been personal barriers for a lot of people being able to accomplish and see the change that they desire or them being able to just reach their own personal life goals. So today I want to be able to pull out a few things for you. And if you see me looking to the sides, because I have my notes, but today I just pretty much wanted to create this Ask Christian session to help give you all self-help tips and education, because asking for help sometimes can be very hard. But knowing that we need it, there's ways that we can give it so that everybody can kind of see that we are not alone. And so today, let's just agree on one thing. There are things that we know about grief and there are things that we know about depression. But let's just agree that we can put kind of some of those things that we already know on the back burner so that we're able to allow ourselves to have space to bring in new concepts, new ideas, and new perspectives, and allow those things to kind of breathe so that you're able to kind of gain a new perspective along with us today. And what I found is sometimes when you kind of put to the back what you already know about certain subjects, you hear new things, you gain new insights, and your mind is broadened. So I'm hoping that that's the experience that you can have today by listening to some of these self-help tips and just allow yourself to be open. Something else that I want to say is that I provide these just as levels of support to people. These are things that I have experienced. These are things that have helped me to kind of navigate through grief. So what I would like to say is that, listen, I generally recommend therapy, but I also recommend that you figure out what it is that you actually need. Because even though therapy is effective, I do know that it doesn't work for everyone. And I also know that everybody grieves differently and in their own way. So it's just important that we all just come to the agreement that figure out what you need so that you can get the help and support that you desire. So at any given time that something in this conversation kind of like hits you and, you know, you are enjoying it, share, invite someone in on this conversation. And if you're watching this on replay, then type replay. So now let's get into the nitty gritty. What is grief? So I know I have my people here on Instagram and I have my people that are here. So here's what I want to talk about. Grief is a normal part of life. It is the longing and the absence of something inside of you, something that you feel like is missing. And I kind of want to create that distinction between grief and depression. So I will talk about that later on in the live, but I kind of want to knock down what grief is not first. There are a lot of common misconceptions about grief, and when it comes to actually providing yourself with the help and support, you hear things like tears are signs of weakness. You'll hear things like, oh, you'll get over it. You'll hear things where people just say that good old, it gets better over over time. And you'll also hear people that just say, the goal is to get over it. Well, I'm here to tell you, when it comes to grief, grief is not something that you get over. Grief is not something that just comes, it visits you, it says hi, and then it says bye. People live with grief. So if you notice in my captions today, I didn't say people suffering from, I didn't say how to get over or how to overcome. I said living with grief and depression, because of what I've grown to understand is that grief is the state of character. It has a state of character for some of us. It comes in, it comes out. There's no, it goes up and down. It really has no form or orientation in our lives. And so that's something that I really wanted to point out about the misconceptions of what people believe grief is and how they kind of take away the grief experience from people. Here's some things that we experience when we are grieving, okay? And there are a few distinctions between depression and grief, but here's some things that you experience when you are grieving. And you'll experience emotional numbness. So maybe your emotions kind of go away. You don't know where they are. You can't feel them. You kind of become delayed. So you may not respond as normal or with a quick response like other people may expect you to have. So some people experience this and don't even realize that they may be experiencing grief, but it is something that you experience. You may also have dreams about a deceased person. You may have social withdrawal. And for me, my biggest one is social withdrawal. So when I am experiencing grief, I may remove myself from social, okay, so I'm hearing the screen is frozen, but it may unfreeze. But here's the great thing about all of this, I'm going to post it on YouTube afterwards. So kind of back to what I was saying about social withdrawal. So withdrawal is one of my strongest suits when I'm grieving. So I'll remove myself from environments. I'll remove myself from conversations. I necessarily won't talk about anything. I won't necessarily be present so much. I'll kind of close off to kind of deal with myself. And so you may be experiencing that. You may also have sleep disturbances. So it may be difficult for you to sleep during the night. It may be hard for you to kind of stay asleep as well, not just going but staying, which are two separate things. But some people may even experience like the mental exhaustion. You're tired, you're constantly running through your mind, something is constantly always going, and so you may find yourself being overly fatigued, but that is associated with grief. Now let's talk about some of the stages of grief. Now, remember when I told you all that grief is not something that has like this linear path. It's not something that is just so straight and goes straight or far. No, grief is something that it literally looks like this, like all over the place sometimes, and there's no set path. However, there are 5 stages of grief, now 6 stages of grief in new discovery. So the first one is denial. The denial phase, the denial stage of grief has everything to do with, I'm sorry, y'all, I'm trying to make sure I get this comment. The denial stage of grief is where you kind of like you're denying yourself. You're denying being able to, you're denying that it even exists. You're denying that you're not experiencing anything. You're denying that you all cannot, like that you can't necessarily be a part of something, like you're denying yourself things. The other one part is anger. So if you all know me, I did a session a few years ago, and I had did the MAD session, where it was removing all dead weight, right? And so that anger phase came from that. Like I was literally in the midst of grief and decided that I was going to host this to talk about aggression, because we breed that. We're mad that the person is gone. We're mad they're not here. You're getting ready to, some of you all are getting ready to get married. Your mother and your father is not here. Some of you all have had lifetime pets and your pet is no longer here. Some of you all are experiencing holidays where those people brought joy to something, right? And so grief is very difficult. Grief is very difficult. And so you may experience anger for that. Some other things is you may be going through periods of bargaining, right? You may want to kind of like, I'll trade you this for this, or you make promises with God. You may be like, God, if you bring me back my partner, if you bring me back my mom, if you bring me back this, then I promise I'll show up at church. I'll promise I'll be a better human. I promise I'll forgive everybody. I promise, this is really bothering me, but anywho, I promise that I'll be there, the next time somebody needs me. So we create these false promises within ourselves, and we're bargaining relationships just because we want to overcome that, the feeling of grief. The other thing is depression. Now, remember I told you all that I wanted to kind of explain the difference between grief and depression. So the difference between grief and depression, grief is generally associated with the loss of a loved one, the loss of something. It could be primary. So your primary loss could be the loss of a loved one, a partner, a significant other. Your other forms of grief could be personal. It could be loss of a job. It could be loss of a friendship. Some other things may be disenfranchised grief, right? Where you miscarried, or you had an abortion or so. So there's so many different phases of grief, and all of this is important because you have to realize where you are in your grieving so that you're able to really understand what it is. Now, the difference between grief and depression is when we get down to talking about depression, we're talking about most of depression is directed inwardly. So if you are talking negatively with yourself, if you are talking negatively about what you can accomplish or what you can do, if you're black and white thinking, either is this or is that, or you're finding yourself so secluded and feeling alone, that is depression. That is separate from grief. Even though depression is one of the stages of grief, those things, depression can also break off into be something greater. So I'm not going to go down that route of depression today, but some of the self-help tips I'm going to provide today are going to be beneficial to you to be able to help support you while you are living with grief and living with depression. And so just making sure we are understanding here that depression is associated with the negative self-talk and anything where you are primarily the person that is involved with the negative feelings, the negative emotions, the bargaining. It is you in your life and you are the primary person. Grief is associated with the loss of someone or something. So it could be, like I said, some of the primary, some of the secondary experiences that I've discussed a little bit earlier. However, when depression can also be a part of something where your own personal needs have not been met. So that's why if you think of depression, think of you and you being the primary person that is experiencing it. I want to jump kind of down now to helping us understand that life really is not a crash course. Like, life is something that we experience. It's something that we are going to go through stressful environments. We are going to go through things that make us feel like we have failed. We're going to go through things that challenge our political views, our values, our morals. We experience those things on so many different levels. And understanding that we are going to experience those things, it kind of sets us up to be prepared for managing and dealing with the effects of grief and depression in our lives. And so here are some ways that you can support yourself. So some ways that you can support yourself is, and I like to think of self-help as being active task. So self-help only works if you are actively participating or actively guiding yourself through or actively taking the necessary steps to kind of bring things to have a different outcome for you. And so I have a list of them. So get your pen and paper ready, like I said, and write down the things that hit home for you. And the other thing is, think about this, you all. Like, you can come back and watch this video. So if you don't catch everything, that's fine. If you just want to keep up, that's fine as well. So the first thing that I always tell people is to identify your feelings. You want to make sure that you identify what you're feeling. And one thing that I know when it comes to identifying your feelings is that I had printed out a color wheel chart, and I was journaling So as I was journaling, I would look at this color wheel chart. I'm like, what am I feeling right now? So that I could attach this feeling to an actual emotion. And so one of the things that I was doing was having to relearn what it is that I was going through. So it helps sometimes when you put words to how you actually feel, and it allows you to kind of form a conversation with yourselves, and helps you communicate to other people about what you are experiencing. The other thing is to be in the comfort of being the comfort and in the company of a caring person. And so we talk about this a lot. We talk about having support systems. We talk about having people that are there to kind of hold our hand and walk our hands through things. But when you are experiencing grief and depression, and you're experiencing new life changes, it is very important that you understand that your support system, you have to know who those people are, and if those people have the capacity to be able to provide you the support that you need. The other thing is for those people that will be helping you, if you are identified as the person that is the support system, you want to make sure that you are being patient, that you are being a listener, and that you are available to be able to be there for someone. Because one thing that we know about depression and grief is that it takes time, and a person could be at anywhere at any given time, and anything can pretty much just trigger those emotions and cause us to feel indifferent about something, right? And sometimes we are living with it because we are grieving something. Not everything that you grieve is dead, right? The truth about it is some things you could be grieving hospital stage. You could be grieving from new experiences, finding out you have some form of cancer, or finding out that a loved one has some terminal illness. There are many different things that cause us to live with grief. And so understanding that a person could be anywhere at any given time. So let's go. Okay, so here's this. I think it's funny, but it's really, really true. It really, really does help when you are experiencing grief and depression. Some of the things that are great for you is to really, like, y'all, take me serious when I say this, but let go of grudges. Like, literally let go and quit holding grudges. A lot of people don't think that that's associated or contributes to from grief turning into depression or a major depression. Listen, holding on to things and holding on to that pain and that hurt, because if that's really what you're experiencing, then be honest with yourself and say that I'm hurt. Be honest and say that I'm sad. Be honest and say that with yourself, and come to terms with what it is that you truly feel, because those grudges and that will really cause you to continue to live in a depressive state of mind. And it really gets unbearable, because then you can't think, right? You don't have the capacity to think. You don't have the capacity to make changes. You don't have the capacity to be able to evolve. And you want that for yourself. So what that leads me to is to telling you that it's time for you to redirect your energy. So now you got to redirect and find primary focuses on things that actually are relevant and matter. And remember, the goal here when it comes to grief is not to act like nothing is happening. It's not to act like it doesn't exist. It's to simply state and acknowledge that there is something there that is bothering you because you're living with it and you are experiencing it. And so you need to understand what it is so that you can figure out how you can help yourself moving forward. And if I ask some of you right now, some of you have created rituals, which I think is beautiful. I think it's beautiful when families get together and you all are able to kind of put together some memorial or something that really honors the life of a person, because a person that has had significant impact in your life and you've had a number of years with them, you don't just get rid of them. Like, remember I said the goal was not to act like they were there and to get over it. The goal is to really position yourself to understand that, you know what, I'm living life without them, but the love that I have for them is still there. The love that I have for them is still exists. It hasn't gone anywhere. And so allowing yourself to make adjustments to doing things, and Some things could even be adjusting to doing the things that you may used to do with that person, like thrift shopping, right? That was something that me and I'm all over the place today, but anywho, thrift shopping, right? That was something that me and my grandmother used to do, but now that's something that me and my aunt do, right? So it's something that you can literally bring someone else into your world. You can literally bring someone else into your experience and still allow them to experience the love and joy that you had with that person, and you bring them along, and you never know what memory that can cultivate within that person as it relates to you. So that is always good. And listen, there's always this thing when we deal with grief and we deal with depression is we have to, regardless of whatever we experience, we have to come to a place where we can begin to believe that life is worth living again. And it doesn't matter, like you can have the strongest faith and you can have the toughest demeanor, but there is still parts of life where you have to allow yourself to remember that life is still worth living, and there is a redemption to life. And as long as you are okay with understanding that these are experiences that you can have, then most definitely you are able to find and allow yourself to dig deeper to find out more about life. And you can involve, like, here's the other thing, right? I say do that because a lot of us are trying to make sense of the loss, right? We are trying to make sense. We're asking why. Why did this happen to you? Why did this person have to go? Why did this have to happen like that to them? It could be a complicated grief. It's like, why? We're everywhere on why. And remember when I told you all that the common misconception is to be like, oh, it'll get better over time. The truth is that's not true for everybody. So if you are in a place of asking why, you do have to come to a place of trying to figure out what about this life is worth living. What's so beautiful about this, and you may know the suffering that a person experienced prior to their loss when it comes to some people that may have left by suicide, or some people that may have left by something that was tragic or traumatic, but it's up to you to kind of understand, what sense of meaning do you want to give to the loss of that person, and what does it mean to continue to live life, right? um I always encourage people to learn about death. I always tell them to learn about death, learn about loss, learn about bereavement. Just learn about it. It sometimes gives you a sense reading stories about other people. A good book that I recommend is Final Gifts. And it gives you just different stories about people that have, or coming to the end of their life and are really, really trying to come to terms. Or you all may have friends or family that have written books about their life and how and what they experienced and how they've been able to overcome some things. I always say find a way to connect. So even if that means joining a support group, if that means that you find someone that has a similar experience and reach out to them and ask them, hey, I'm experiencing this and I was just wondering, what did you do to kind of support yourself through this? It's all in like your ask. The other thing is, I think some of the last things that I want to say, because I can say so many different things about just about death in general, or just about loss and grieving and depression, is I think that some of the things that are very helpful is limiting all like major changes in your life, because really when you're already going like this and you're mentally tired and it's constantly on your mind, you're going to want to have something that kind of like begins to lower the curve and kind of flatten some things out. So you want to make sure that you all are really experiencing what you need to experience and acknowledging what's happening with you so that you can gradually get the changes that you need. The other thing is to, like I said, I keep saying the other thing is because there's so many different things you can do. It just depends on what you want to do, like who you are as a person and what you have, what you can commit to. Because remember, I said a lot of these things are active tasks. These are things that you have to actually do. In order to see the changes and results, or to live better, or to get a better quality of life as you desire. But please acknowledge your pain and acknowledge your sadness, because we all know that the physical presence of people is gone, but you have to find a way to kind of still figure out, why is life worth living, and why am I still here and that person isn't, or true questions that people have. And so, like, I just kind of want to hear from you all. Can you all state, like, what was the most significant loss to you? Like, it could be a loss of a job, loss of a pet, it could be a loss of some people have experienced divorce, and, like, divorce to me is like going through a death. I can remember the very first time I heard that and I didn't believe it, but then when I had that experience, it was like, oh my gosh, I'm dying here. But it was something that I had to acknowledge. It was something that needed to be acknowledged and known exactly where I was. And then I want to give you all the last phase of the grieving process, and that is hope. So I cannot tell you what to hope for, but I can tell you that there are things that you probably experience right now that you already have a hope for, and you're focusing and redirecting your attention and energy in those places. So I will say, do what you need to do, even if that means, self-caring and kind of removing yourself and withdrawing yourself from different areas and different places. Like, do what you need to do so that you can accomplish and achieve, a better quality of life that you desire. So I really do appreciate all of you all tuning in, and kind of just sticking into hearing about the self help tips to kind of help you all that are living with grief and living with depression. And so you all know, like I explained, I am open if you all need referrals, if you all need someone to kind of like talk to, if you all need someone to kind of just, you need some redirection, right? Because it's real, it happens. You lose yourself in the middle of losing something else, because that thing it was so much a part of your life. And I'm kind of tearing up thinking about this, because I've shared with you all several experiences about the loss of my grandmother, which was traumatic and unfortunate and definitely unexpected, as most loss and grief is. But just remember, grief is when it's associated with someone or something, and depression is primarily associated with how you talk to yourself. How do you, if it's mainly you or the focal person, that's you're more than likely you're experiencing depression. But a lot of the self-help tips will still help you figure out a way to get through. And folks, I wish I could tell you that it was one good thing and one good way to live with it, but really it's however you experience and whatever part of life you allow all of those stages of grief to kind of take you through. I really encourage you to kind of just let yourself experience those things as need be, without being harsh with yourself, which means you give yourself grace, you give yourself compassion. And boy, I am a compassionate person for people who are experiencing grief and depression and are angry, because I know what it's like to be shut out in those moments. And it's like, I can't even explain to a person like what you are experiencing. I may even need to do another math session or something, because the truth is, I feel for people who goes through the anger stage, because that is really difficult and most people don't understand it. And that may have to be a topic for later, but that let me take a minute to kind of check these comments. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, it is. The denial stage is really real. We really do deny what we are experiencing. And I'm hoping that one day, like, my hope when it comes to grief and depression is that we get to the place where we can talk about and we can talk and communicate our discomfort and our denial and our anger and our frustration in the place where people don't judge you for being angry because of what you feel and experience. As you are going through experiencing your grief or your depression. So I'm hoping that we can grow, right? We can grow through conversation. Over here, Thank you. So Will says best time for your therapy sessions. Absolutely. Absolutely. Like I said, I do encourage therapy. However, I am aware that therapy doesn't always work for people. So that is why I am providing self-help tips so that you can decide what active task you need to take in order to kind of help and support yourself. So Nicole, you have my condolences, sis. She said this is good. She lost her dad very recently. And so you all just like, if you see Nicole, heart her. Give her some hearts. Give Lily Nolan some hearts as well. You all give everybody hearts, because right now we are experiencing, even being in this quarantine and this pandemic and things open and closing, we kind of grieve the loss of jobs, right? Because some people are furloughed. We have so many different experiences that are really impacting us on a daily basis. But my goal is that you all don't feel like you are alone. My goal is that you understand that we are in this together, and that you better understand yourself. Because when you better understand yourself and you know where you are, you can support yourself, and you know which steps to take and which things to do to kind of help navigate yourself. And I'm a firm believer, like when people say, like, kind of like Hansel and Gretel, like dropping crumbs and being able to find your way back. I feel like if you get that sprinkle, right, you get that dose of what you need and you hear it, that you're able to kind of figure out what path you need to take. And your path is going to be different, because everybody moves differently. We just experience life differently. And so that's just the way it is. But I do want to say, I'm open to answer any questions. If anyone has questions you want to ask about an experience or so, I want to make sure. Somebody asked me a question here. Okay. Okay. So, if there's any experiences that you have, okay, someone asked a question about males. Um, So here's the thing: when it comes to men experience, I like men, just being a man yourself, like, right? It really brings on an added layer, because men are the protectors. They have this shell, they have this persona of what a man can be. And so one of the many things that I would definitely say when it comes to being a male and you going through grief and you going through depression, I really just want to encourage men to really learn their emotions, like, and be able to say that, because women, we really are communicators. Like, if you let us know, like, I am sad right now, like, oh my gosh, like, we would be so happy to hear that. Like, I am sad, I'm angry, I'm frustrated about this. It's really about kind of putting words to what it is you're experiencing, so that you can necessarily well, not necessarily, so that you're able to kind of help guide the conversation and lead us to the place in which you need the support. So I think that's very beneficial for men in general. So I'm going to give it a couple seconds, and then I'm going to actually log off. Oh, Lily said, yes, girl, the anger is real. Don't I know it? It was kind of funny. Like, I literally did a moving all dead weight session titled Mad I think that was in 2018. And I kind of laughed at myself, because I was really angry. And no one could really understand. And like, sometimes when you're grieving, and when we are grieving, we will do, like, our number one survival technique. I didn't talk about this, but I'm going to talk about it now. Our number one survival technique is self-harm. And we self-harm in so many different ways. We self-harm in maybe overindulging in alcohol. We may self-harm in over sexual behaviors, right? We may self-harm in deciding we're just not going to go to work, which jeopardizes our job security, right? And our food security. We may decide we're going to stop eating. There are so many different things that we do as a response to grief that we need to be able to realize that those are actually self-harming behaviors for us. And so that's why I say it's very important to have a support system in place. So my heart is with you. I lost both parents. Yes, girl, shower some love. Y'all better connect up on this thread here, because it's greater when you have somebody that has experienced that as well. If people say it doesn't make a difference, it does make a difference. Experience does make a difference, because you have some substance, you have something to hold to, that to say, this is why I'm going through this. This is why I can understand. However, the experience that you have does not mean that the same person that has the similar experience is going to experience it the same way. I hope y'all caught that, because we are different, and we just are. That's just the way of life. So what I'm saying is, I lost my grandmother in November and was having to explain this to my dad, who was not taking it well. There is phases, and it is okay. Absolutely. It is okay not to be okay. And my girl Erica Jackson will tell you that, like, that is like her hashtag therapist line. Like, that is her thing. Like, it is okay not to be okay. And I think sometimes we get caught up in places where we think we have to be okay. We, like, I literally believe that we breed sometimes within ourselves, that we take on this strong person mentality, or like character and persona for people, and they don't even ask for us to be strong. Like, some people don't even ask for us to be strong. And it was so funny, because I was gonna post this yesterday, but I was like, is it okay? Like, are we finally at the place where we can start asking people, like, what kind of support do you need, or how do you need me, or what type of friend, like, what type of relationship do we have? Because that's important, because you need to be able to identify your support system. You need to know who you're communicating with, what you're around. You need to know. And especially if it's complex, right? So for that one, when you have a grandmother, and it was and you're trying to explain something to your dad, and that could be your dad's mother, right? So your dad may be trying to be strong for you, but at the same time, it's his mother, right? And so I've been there. But at the same time, when it comes to like explaining that, you also assume that role, like the child to the father, that, hey, I'm gonna be the listener for you, I'm gonna be the observer for you, I'm gonna be the supporter to you. So it's just making sure, if you have that capacity to be able to do that, then definitely put yourself in the seat, in the position to be able to do it. Make sure that you are also acknowledging it along the way, not numbing it, but make sure that you are present with what is taking place with you. So I think that's very important when you're experiencing that. And you said there is phases. Absolutely. There are so, like y'all could probably add to the phases of grief. Remember, like, research and studies and things of that sort are just things that people have identified. You can add, you can change, you can modify. You all may have found new techniques that have worked for you, and so drop those too. Leave those in the comments of what you have done. I know some people said, okay, so they've created I know some people have created like different arts and crafts, and every year, like, they're counting or adding a butterfly, or adding a stick to a jar, or adding a rock to a flower bed. There are things that we do to commemorate the loss of the people. The loss of people. I don't know how we got stuck on people, but like I said, there are so many different losses that we experience in life in general. Loss of a job, loss of a friend. Sometimes you have a loss of a community. You have, like, especially if you, for people like me, who social withdrawal is something that you do during those experiences, then you may feel a sense of loss of community, a loss of connection, a loss of a job, a loved one, because there are many different phases of grief that we go through. But I definitely just encourage each of you all to get the help and support that you need, the best way that you need it. And so, like, I think I'm going to close here. So far in this session, we have lips coming off because I'm drinking my tea. Earrings then fell off, and hair is coming out the side, y'all. But most importantly is that you all get the help and support that you need. So Lily says, I learned to dance and practice yoga, but instead of just dancing or a yoga pose, I would dedicate to those I lost. So lighting a candle and dedicating this song or post to them. Absolutely. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I think, when it comes to remembering someone, it's up to you to create something that is a reminder that is valued by you. Right? It's important to you because that relationship kind of stuck with you. And so I think we have these conversations where it's like, it's okay. It's okay. There's no judgment on what you do and how you do it. The point is that you're learning how to live and flatten the curve of being like this all the time, because it can be hard. It can be hard. Some people are struggling with keeping appointments. Some people are struggling with just, associating or comprehending. Let me tell y'all something. When you are experiencing something, the loss of something, you can go through memory loss. I don't know if you guys know this, if you ever notice that your short-term memory has been altered, right? That's because you're experiencing some form of memory loss that is due to the suppression of somewhere else or some thought or content somewhere in your brain, right? So you can also experience loss of appetite. Like I said, we talked about self-harming behaviors. You may loss of pleasure or enjoyment. Those things actually do go away when you are experiencing grief. Emotions, like you may just become a person that, like, you can look at something, just be like, oh, okay, no impact at all. You'll know what you do and how you do it once you start paying more attention to how you respond to things. But the thing is not to force yourself to experiences, force yourself or to be in a state of mind or thinking that you're not quite ready yet. And it's also not succumbing to those thoughts where people say, it'll get better over time. I hate when people say that, by the way. Let me just throw that out there. Stop saying that to people. It'll get better over time. It gets better. No, we can literally, there is language to help people, you all. We can provide support to people by just saying, I've been there. I've gone through that experiences. I'm sending you my love. You have my deepest condolences. You can even ask some people are afraid to say this, but you can ask people, how do you need me to support you right now? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's okay, because when a person is going through something, you really don't know what they need. And you don't want to be out here just guessing and giving stuff and doing stuff you don't know. So, like I said, it's okay to ask. It's okay to ask. Depending on the relationship that you kind of have with that person, you want to know. So, for example, with me and my best friend, there are some things that I just know. Do you all know that my godfather taught me this too, but it's so true. Like, and it ties back into what I was saying about my best friend. Is like, there is support in presence. Like, you can just show up. You ain't even got to say nothing. You ain't even got to, like, just you being there sometimes can be enough. And, not overdoing it. I've been over the top, not X, Y, and Z. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, folks, you really have to know, when it comes to your support system, you really have to know who those people are, because you don't want to get your feelings hurt trying to show up and be a support to somebody and they like, not taking the calls right now, and you wasn't the people on the other side that they were actually taking calls for. So you just you got to know. And some people are just private about their lives, so it's very important that you understand the nature of your relationship with people. It's very important, especially since we help each other through life. We literally help each other through life, like beyond our friends. Like, we help each other, So you really want to make sure that you are getting what you need. Girl, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Okay, so this was it. This was my final thought. I really appreciate you all tuning in. And so I just want to put a hint out there. So next Thursday, I was thinking about talking about divorce. Tell me what y'all think. Y'all let me know what topics you all would like to explore and what self-help tips you all would like to receive on something. Drop a comment and let your girl know, because I am eager to talk about it. And I want to make sure that I help get you the support that you need and the questions answered that you need, so that you can kind of live a fulfilling life, and live a better quality of life that you desire. But until next time, you all, remember my 3 C's. Remember to connecting with yourself authentically. Also, remember to commit, right? The commitment between yourself, your own self-care, balancing your own life and taking care of your own business, and consistency. Consistency means, doing all of that stuff at a pace that works for you, not at a pace that works for other people, because we are not them, okay? We are us, and that is all that we need to remember when we are doing things and we are navigating out here through life, okay, folks? So I really appreciate it. Oh, and if y'all have not, I just dropped a small segment yesterday on the My Seeker's Purpose podcast. Remember to download that and show up here next Thursday. so that we can have another great dialogue and another great conversation about ask Christian different topics. Someone said, go there, sis. Divorce is good, and also how to deal with toxic friendships. Sus, you speaking my language. You speaking my language. Okay, y'all. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for tuning in. Much love to all of you all. Oh, yes. And if you would like to book with me, like if you would like to have I am going to do some sessions soon. I'll be opening back up my books to really start doing some sessions with folks. And I really love to talk to some of you all about what you are experiencing to kind of help give you some self-help things. I think I'm going to do like self-help sessions, just kind of let me know what y'all think about that. Because, y'all be getting hung up on titles sometimes, and I don't have time for that. I just want to make sure you get what you need, bro and sis. So, let's get out here. Let's do it. You can book that at www.mysecretspurpose.com. And thank you all for tuning in today. I'm going to end down here on Facebook. Peace out, y'all.